Hello everyone, welcome back. I am Fer and this is Deciphering Phyrexian. And this video, like all my videos past, present and future, is brought to you by my Patreons, Otimotiusum, Matt Zweig, Daniel H. McGillivray, Marlon Brown and Valerie Hythe. All my Patreons, thank you very much. First, before we move on to the episode, I just want to say that I took some time of making these videos to make videos about other topics that I consider very important. For example, I interviewed a Mexican nurse about the horrible conditions of healthcare workers here in Mexico. I tried to make a video explaining the situation of the chemotherapy shortage. Many cancer patients are suffering right now here, and I don't see the news covering these issues. So yeah, all in all, actually Yagmoth would be very pleased with the healthcare system here in Mexico, and that's a problem. But talking about Yagmoth, do you know what his name means? Because I do. Okay, well, let me back off. Yagmoth is one of the most iconic characters in the history of Magic the Gathering. Here we can see two cards that depict Yagmoth at different points in his life. Here he is when he was still a doctor, a human. And here he is thousands of years later when he had modified his body to become this machine god. And the thing is that, well, he created the Phyrexian, he created this world of perfect robots. And for that reason, he is known as the Ineffable because, like, all his subjects believe that he couldn't make mistakes. But he's also known as the father of machines. But here's the thing. I have proof, and you know I don't say it lightly. I usually am very cautious with what I say. But right now, I have proof that Yagmoth means that the meaning of his name is Father of Machines. He wasn't just known as the Father of Machines, that's the meaning of his name. Or at least in Phyrexian. But okay, I'll show you the evidence in a little bit. Oh, but also, before we move on, I want to make the quick announcement that from now on, I'm going to be streaming regularly, Wednesdays at 5 p.m. You can find the link to my stream, to my Twitch channel in the description. And in the next few sessions, I'm going to be working on the Phyrexian dictionary to make it better, to improve it. But then, I don't know, as time goes on, I'm going to start streaming other stuff. Who knows? If that sounds interesting, go check my Twitch channel. Again, that's Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Central Time, because that's my time zone. But yeah, anyway, let's move on. Right now, let's just look at this. These are the names of the 5 predators, right? And what I wanted to do is to finally have a better understanding of the Phyrexian writing system. Because the first episode was about the writing system, then we tried to decipher a bunch of stuff about how the grammar works, and we discovered a lot, but now I think it's time to finally go back to how the writing system works. I have concluded, and I have very good evidence, that Phyrexian, it uses a featural writing system. Now, what's a featural writing system? For example, in Korean, you can have things like this. These are 2 Korean letters. They are very similar, and the features of the symbols tell you how they sound. Now, if I remember correctly, this is a K sound, and this is a Ga sound. And as you can see, the difference is just voicing, because when you say Ka and Ga, Ga, Ka, Ga, Ka, your tongue, your mouth is moving in the exact same way. The difference is that with Ga, your vocal cords are vibrating, which is represented here with the symbol. And similarly, Korean, I think, has this letter and this letter. And if I remember correctly, I think this one is D and this one is T. And that sort of stuff. So the features, the shape of the letters in Korean tell you how to pronounce them. Something similar is happening here with Phyrexian, although it is not as straightforward. Okay, so let's just look, for example, at the letters here in Sheoldred. We know that Sheoldred has all these sounds here are what's interesting, because we have, I'm going to write them with the International Phonetic System, so some of them are going to be the same, some of them are going to be different. We have the L sound, the D, Sheoldred. Okay, so these sounds are interesting because all of these sounds, except for this vowel, but all of these consonants are what we call alveolar. That's the linguistic terminology for sounds that are made using the part of your mouth that is just behind your teeth. So if say make this sound and notice where you are putting your tongue when you say like an L, sheol, and the D and the R. All of these three sounds are done with that part of your mouth that is just behind your teeth, which is called the alveolar ridge. Okay, and now notice this. We have this thing here, and then we have it here, and then we have it here, and then we have it here. So could it be? And we know from other examples that this symbol here, this is an L, this is a D, this is an R, and well, here we have the D again. So it seems that this symbol here means that something is alveolar, which is interesting because then we have, for example, here in Elish Norn, we have the two N's, one at the beginning and one at the end of Norn. And this letter, this N, is apparently done with this symbol. And then this thing here, this feature, this symbol, indicates the feature that a sound is alveolar. And we will come back to this sound a bit later. But this is getting interesting. But now, another thing that I notice is, for example, again, here in Elish Norn, we have Elish. And we have this sound that the linguist, okay, in English, you represent it with an SH, but in linguistics, it is represented with like an integration symbol. So that's what I'm going to do. Just keep in mind that's a sh sound. So Elish. But then if we go to, and actually we find it again here in Sheldred. Okay, so that's nice. But then in Urabrask, we have something very similar, but it has a different diacritic. Okay, so let's just put these symbols next to each other. We have this symbol here, which we know has a sh sound. I think that the linguistic terminology would be an unvoiced palatal fricative. So unvoiced because your vocal cords are not vibrating. Shh. It's a palatal because you do it with a palatal of your mouth, and it's a fricative because it's made with friction, right? Shh. And then we have this other one, which is also an unvoiced alveolar fricative, the Urabrask. Okay, so it's interesting because here we have a sound that is alveolar, but it doesn't have the alveolar symbol. And then we have two variations of this same sound. Okay, so let's keep looking at more examples to see what we can find. Well, first in Elish, we have this symbol here, which seems to represent what we call the glottal stop. This symbol, I think I have mentioned it a couple of times. If you don't remember, this is a sound that exists in many languages, but many people don't realize it is even a sound. For example, when you say, uh-oh, like you made a mistake, uh-oh, you are not saying, oh, see the difference? Uh-oh, oh, that, and I know it's crazy, but that's a consonant. In fact, I've mentioned this as well in Hawaiian. That's a consonant, and it changes words. So anyway, the point is, in Phyrexian, this is a consonant. They have a symbol for it. But then if we go to Urabrask, check it out. We have another line. There's a diagonal line. It's okay, and we know that the sound this is making. Well, here we have another glottal stop, and then the U, and then the R that we already know. So this is I'm gonna put the equivalence of the sounds. U, R. Then it has to be the B, and then the R, and then the S, and then the Urabrask. Okay, interesting, because the B, the sound for the B in English, this is also a stop. This is a bilabial voiced stop, which means that it is a stop that you make with your lips. It's pretty straightforward. And actually, the unvoiced version is P. So if you have pa, ba. No, actually, va, pa, ba, pa, ba, pa. Okay, so both are stops, both are made with your lips, and the only difference is that with this one your vocal cords vibrate, and with this one it doesn't. Keep these two in mind. It will become relevant in a little bit. Okay, but now let's look at Jinkitaxias. Okay, so we have that this is a J sound, and I think this is how you greet it in International Phonetic Alphabet. I know it looks like a D with another symbol smudged to it. Like, what are you gonna do? And then we have a glottal stop, and then an N. It may sound crazy to have a glottal stop before a consonant, but some languages, some real human languages do that. Although, of course, I find it really hard to pronounce. But remember also that in Phyrexian you don't write all the vowels all the time. I still have not figured that out. But the point is that it could be that it is G-in, not Jin, G-in with a glottal stop in between the E's. Or maybe there is a glottal stop before the N, which, okay, I'm gonna try to pronounce it once. G-in, G-in. Okay, that was twice, but it sort of worked. Anyway, and then we have but then check it out, we have another stop. This is a Velar voiced stop, and the unvoiced version is a K. Actually, I think we have already mentioned this with Korean, right? So we have a voiced Velar stop. Okay. And perhaps it's really hard to see, but the diacritic they are using here is this one, okay? Which is interesting because it's the mirror version of this other one. Okay, so let's... Okay, I swear to you, I'm gonna eventually land all of these observations. Right now, we are just making observations. When I'm finished with all the observations, we are gonna reach the conclusions, okay? But then we have E or some other vowel. I mean, it's not the same vowel that you have here. Okay, vowels, I'm gonna leave them for later. But then we have another thing. This would have to be, well, it's Jinkitaxias, and then this would have to be a T. Okay, another stop. This is an alveolar stop. Okay, Jinkitaxias, and this is an unvoiced Velar stop. And then we have this other symbol, which actually, if you look at Jinkitaxias and boarding clicks, it looks like this symbol here represents KS. Which maybe it is such a common sequence in Phyrexian that they have a symbol just for it. But it's also interesting that, well, here at the end of Urabrask, we have something similar. And okay, I'm gonna spoil this one conclusion for you, or well, the lack of a conclusion. There are many symbols that use stars, and I'm not entirely sure what they mean, but I'm almost certain it is related to sequences of, clusters of consonants with the letter S. I suspect that's what's going on. Let's move on, because there are other things that I do have conclusions on. But then look at what's happening here with boring clicks. We have another diagonal line, but it's inclined in the other direction, right? Here we have it inclined. How do you say this? From right to left, and this is from left to right. Like if you consider the top the beginning and the bottom the end. Okay, I'm gonna say it that way. So this one is inclined from left to right, and this is actually a voiced labiodental fricative. Okay, basically you make it with your lips and with your teeth, voting clicks, and then the R and then the N, and then we have something that would have to be, okay, look at this. This is kind of a problem. Oh, no, actually, no, I solved it. I remember it that when I was looking at it, I was like, oh man, this doesn't make any sense. But then I solved it, and I just remembered. Okay, just remember, this would be a voiced Velar stop. But it's very different here because we have here the voiced version. And they are inclined in the different direction. They have different diacritics. Okay, so this seems confusing, but believe me, I'm gonna land all of this. And then we have an L, and then this KS symbol that we have seen before. Okay, but now let's put all the evidence together and let's get to some damn conclusions. Okay, first, I think that in Phyrexian, all the symbols have a default sound, and that when you add diacritics or other things, it changes it to some other sound. For example, the default sound of this symbol would be the letter M. Actually, if you remember, at first I wasn't sure what this symbol was. I thought that the M was this other symbol. But then, actually, from the card in Urabrask, we saw the word for mana, and we saw the card for and when we saw another instance of the name of Mirrodin, and so we concluded that this symbol had to be the symbol for M. But then, another interesting thing that we have seen is we have seen many times the symbol for N, and it's just like the symbol for M, but with this alveolar thing, that this symbol that I'm gonna call it the alveolar diacritic. Okay, but now let's put all those observations together and let's get to some damn conclusions. Okay, I think that in Phyrexian, all the symbols have a default sound. For example, I think that the default sound of this symbol, without changing anything, is just M. So that would make it a bilabial nasal. But we have seen the symbol for N many times. And it's just like the symbol for N, but we just add this alveolar diacritic that we have seen before, and now it turns into an N. And the N is the alveolar nasal. Okay, so let's look at another example. I'm getting excited because this honestly feels like a breakthrough. Another one that we have seen without any diacritics is this one in Urabrask, and it stood for this symbol, for this sound, the voiced bilabial stop. And notice that the the base symbol without anything in both of these examples is bilabial. That's interesting, and voiced. But okay, now let's say that we want to make this symbol not bilabial but alveolar. Well, then we do this, and now it is the D from Sheldred. Okay, so now let's say we wanted to make it a stop, but now an unvoiced stop. Okay, so we add this other diacritic, and now it is the T from Jingitaxias. Okay. So now let's say that we want to start a word with the glottal stop, like in Eleshnorn or Urabrask. Well, we start with a stop, and then we add this symbol, and apparently that turns it into the glottal stop. Hey, I'm not complaining here. It makes... I'm not entirely sure what this symbol here is representing, but it's clearly turning this stop into something else. We even have the unvoiced Velar stop at the end of Urabrask, like this. So you can see that all the how do you call it? All the stops in this language are made with this same base symbol. Okay, but let's look at another example. I'm getting so excited. I think I'm missing one. Okay, yeah. I was missing one. If you do this, but instead of using this symbol, you use this symbol. Actually, let me write it better. Now this is the voiced Velar stop, because I think that this symbol is pointing forward. This is like an arrow. It's telling you this is the front of your mouth. And then this symbol is pointing backwards to the back of your mouth. So that explains why this turns, it just says, take this voiced stop and take it to the back. It is pointing you literally to the back of your mouth and say like, hey, put it there. And so, yeah, this is great. But okay, now let's look at another example. I'm getting so excited. We have seen this symbol before. Actually, let me write it better. First, start with a line. Now there. We have seen, oh no, what's going on? We have seen that this one is the unvoiced palatal fricative, right? And we have seen that this symbol is the unvoiced unvoiced alveolar fricative. Okay, so if I'm right, then this symbol means, hey, whatever you have, unvoice it and move it forward. Okay, so unvoice and move forward. And then what would this symbol mean? Okay, I think, I admit this is a little bit of a speculation. I think this symbol means just unvoiced whatever you have. Unvoice it and don't change anything else. And this is going to become relevant later. Just remember that. And so what would this symbol be without any diacritics? I think it's just the zzz, the voiced alveolar fricative. So basically the voiced version of this symbol. And you may be thinking, hey, but like you are not moving anything forward. And yeah, you are right. But here's the thing, I don't have an explanation for that. I just don't think that this simple instance is enough to disprove everything else, and we have a lot more to go through, because, okay, let me put this here, because we have another vase symbol, the one we saw in Vorinclex. We know that this is a voiced labiodental fricative. Notice how all the base ones involve the lips. These two were bilabial, and this one is labiodental. So that's interesting. Now, we don't have many other instances of this symbol, but we have one that is very interesting in Vorinclex. Actually, it's something like this. And you look at that, and it's actually, let me show it. Okay, so here we are in Vorinclex, and then you see the symbol, and it's followed by the L. So this should be Klex. So this symbol should have an unvoiced Velar stop, a K sound. But it isn't. Because here is what I think is going on. Phyrexian uses some sounds that English doesn't have. And so when you anglicize Vorinclex's name, that sound gets turned into a K, but it isn't. So basically what I say it's happening is that you have this sound in English that is just the closest English equivalent to, okay, let's say we have, actually, let me separate this. Okay, so, okay, what sound would be this? It would be a fricative, okay, and it is in the back of your mouth and it is unvoiced. So, in the back of your mouth, unvoiced, fricative, there aren't really many options. So I think it is this sound, the unvoiced Velar fricative. And actually, if you speak Irish, or actually this is a sound that exists, for example, in Spanish. When we say Mexico, this is the H in Mexico. Also, and even the fact that it is followed by an L. In Vorinclex, it would be Vorinclex. And that Hlex is actually very common, for example, in Irish. In Irish, you have the word Mochlan, which means my family, and it has that sound followed by an L. So yeah, I think, I don't know, it's so many things are making sense right now. Now, of course, also an argument against this is that we have seen many times the following symbol. It's just like this one, and it has a star, and it apparently has this sound. Yeah, this is another one of those tiny inconsistencies, but it's just, I don't think this is enough to contradict everything else. And in fact, it seems very clear that we have this parallel between these two sounds, pointing forward, pointing backward, unvoiced and voiced. It's so amazing. It's so simple. It's like suddenly everything makes sense. Okay, but now I have to calm down because, okay, there are a few things here and there. So, for example, what's going on with this symbol at the beginning of the name of Yagmoth? It is perhaps like a palatal glide? Yeah, maybe. And it's kind of like the front of your mouth. It's actually more like the middle, but sure. And then we have this weird symbol in Jingitaxias, like, what's going on with this thing? Like, and it's supposed to be like, this is technically a stop, or like an affricate. I think that's the technical term. And but the biggest thing is that if you start looking for more words in the but the biggest problem with all of this is that if you start looking at many words in the Phyrexian corpus, in all the Phyrexian text we have seen, you will see some of these diacritics appearing on words and you don't know what could that mean. Or you see combinations of these diacritics and you don't know what to make of them. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sure what all of this means, but I'm pretty sure most of this has to be right. We have to be onto something here, because all of these cannot just be coincidences. It simply cannot be coincidences. But I think that the best explanation we have is now, what's up with the word for Phyrexia? It's among the first words we ever saw, and we have seen it many times. I can recognize it at a glance in Phyrexian text, And we know most of what's going on here. This is an R, this is a diphthong, the I, and then we have this thing here, which apparently is a KS. I know it doesn't really, it's one of those issues we have, but anyway. And we know that it almost always ends up with this symbol. It's probably not part of the word. It's probably part of some grammatical thing, maybe like a case system. But none of that matters now. What matters is just what the fuck is going on here. What's up with this symbol? Like, it's so confusing. There's so much going on. You don't have just the diagonal line. You have this thing here and then this thing here. We know that this is a B, right? And okay, I think this is my supposition, my hypothesis, that this symbol means that whatever symbol you have, you unvoice it and you don't change anything. So now this would be a P. Okay, but sometimes we have seen this thing here. I don't know if you remember, but believe me, it's sometimes there. What would this mean? Well, this reminds me of what's going on with the glottal stop, right? Because it has this thing. And okay, I have very few reasons to say this. This is just an educated guess. But there is this thing in linguistics called aspiration. So basically, for every stop, there is an aspirated and unaspirated variant. So for example, you have pa and pa. You have ka and ka. And actually, English uses both of these variants, but you see them as you see both of these as just P, just different versions of P. You don't even notice the difference. And same with K. But for example, Hindi speakers from India would notice the difference. In fact, they have different letters to write these different sounds. So my point is that the difference between aspirated and unaspirated can be very important, even if it's not for English specifically. So my point is that perhaps this is the aspirated P. Okay, interesting. But then, what happens when we add this? Well, I think this is what happens. So it wouldn't be pronounced Phyrexia, it would be pronounced Phyrexia. And this is not that crazy because, for example, in German, they use this sound all the time. For example, horse is Pferd, plant is Pflanz. So yeah, this is a real sound that some real languages use. And actually, it would kind of make sense because like the writing of Phyrexian is used with this PH. It could be like in universe that they decided that they don't have an equivalent of this PF sound, so they wrote it with a PH, but pronounced it with the closest sound that was an F, that of Phyrexia. So I don't know, like honestly, this is what convinced me to finally make this video and show you guys what I think I found out. Because it just makes sense. But how is all of this related to the meaning of the name of Yagmoth? Well, I was looking at these three names because they all have interesting problems regarding the writing system. Well, with Mirrodin, first is what's the meaning of this sound, of these symbols here? What are they doing here? Because the name of Mirrodin seems to start here with an M. And the answer is, I don't know. I'm still working on that. I just told you what's up with this symbol here. I think it's the PF. But then what's up with Yagmoth? Well, I mentioned earlier that I don't know what's going on with this symbol here. There's also the issue of what's going on with this diacritic. Actually, this diacritic appears in several places, and I still don't know what it means. Like this diacritic and the star seem to be, I don't know, these are the two diacritics that are confusing me the most. And so I started looking for more examples of this diacritic in particular. And then I found it. I found the meaning of the name of Yagmoth. Are you ready? This is a part of this comes from a promotional video. And in the video, we see someone speaking in Phyrexian, and then we have the translation in English in the subtitles. And in this section, someone is saying the father of machines will come. In fact, I had already analyzed this phrase somewhere else. I mentioned that here we have a plural, and we know that the phrase is the father of machines, plural is coming, so this has to be machines, and then because of the word order in Phyrexian, this has to mean father. This symbol is the same as this symbol. This vowel here is duplicated to make the plural, but it's the same vowel that we see here. Here we have the symbol for the glottal stop, and here it is again. Here we have this stop here with this diacritic whose meaning I don't know, and here it is again. Now with Yagmoth, we immediately have the symbol for the M, but here we have a word separator. But then we have the M anyway, and then the O, and then the glottal stop, which I think means that it is Yagmoth or something like that, with like a double O separated by a glottal stop. But anyway, it is there. Here we have a vowel that doesn't appear here, and finally we have this symbol, which is also here. But and let's try to use what we learned to try to find out how it would sound. Well, the base sound is by labiodeltal fricative, voice labiodeltal fricative. So we know that this probably is going to be a fricative as well. So, and it is unvoiced and is pointing forward. So a fricative that is unvoiced, as you make it with the top of your mouth, there are a few options, and one of them is this. Well, this is the linguistic symbol for this sound in English, Yagmoth. It would be the dental unvoiced fricative, based on everything we know. Also, I mean, you could argue as well that this could be perhaps for the S, or I don't know, there are, or what else, an F. Yeah, there are certainly some other unvoiced fricatives done at the front of your mouth. So yeah, I'm not saying that Phyrexian is perfect on this, but the point is, actually, I'm getting lost. Like, I went off on a tangent. The point is that, look at this. It is the same symbols for Yagmoth. It's just separated by a word separator, and there is one more vowel. Other than that, it's the exact same thing, and it was there all along for 10 years. It has been in front of us, and perhaps other people have noticed. No, certainly other people have noticed this, but certainly not enough people to make it into the official wikis. Like, I looked around into all the official sources. They mentioned that Yagmoth was known as the father of machines, but here we see that Jag means machine and Moth means father. Yagmoth is machine father in Phyrexian. This is evidence, it is proof. And so yeah, I expect to see this in the wikis, I don't know, like soon. Like, take your time, don't worry, it's fine if you don't edit, like, it's fine. But I expect to see this in the wikis eventually, because it seems uncontroversial to me. Like, okay, please do me a favor. If you think that I'm correct, if I convince you that Yagmoth does mean machine father, yeah, because yeah, remember, this one means the father of machines is coming, then please tweet this video to Gavin or to Mark Rosewater or to maybe the professor, someone that works at Wizards of the Coast, or someone prominent in the Magic the Gathering community. Someone. Also, well, this video is pretty long. Okay, you can send them like a timestamp or something, starting at this moment in the videos or something like that, and tell them, hey. Like, a guy figured out that Yagmoth means machine father in Phyrexian. Because yeah, I want like, if Gavin Verhey comments something about this video, I swear to God, I'm gonna be so happy. It's gonna feel like all our work has paid off. And that's it for today. It really feels like a breakthrough. I really feel like we made a lot of progress. Yeah, it reminds me to that song of Queen that I'm not gonna sing because of YouTube, but I'm gonna tell you the lyrics. If I could only reach you, if I could only make you smile, that would really be a breakthrough. Breakthrough. Ooh. Woohoo. Anyway, if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and give me a like. Maybe consider joining my Patreon. Also watch some of the videos I mentioned earlier, the important ones. They are not funny videos, they are sad, they are gonna make you sad. But They are important. Anyway, goodbye.